Hello there folks, and welcome back to another speed paint video. If you've been following my channel for a while, you might know that back in the fall I drew my mother as a Pokémon trainer. And I remember at the end of that video I said that I intended to do my dad maybe like the next week or the week after that. And, well, something around like, I don't know, 6 months has passed since then and I still haven't done it until today. So today I finally draw my dad as a Pokémon trainer. A much-awaited sequel to a video I did a while ago. So sorry to my dad for having to make him wait this long, but here he is, drawn as a Pokemon trainer. One of the most difficult parts about this one was deciding on a pose for my dad. So my dad is a tennis player. That's something he does a lot in his free time. He does coaching for some local kids. He does tennis recreationally, like during some weeknights. It's just a lot of fun for him. He's really good at it, and I wanted to represent that in this drawing for a little bit. After all, some trainers in Pokemon are just straight up, like, athletes who are also, like, doing Pokemon battles on the side. I always remember, like, the sports stadiums in Unova, in Nimbasa City, whenever I think about, like, the presence of sports in Pokemon, so I thought I'd represent that with my dad. But then came the difficulty of, you know, deciding on an action-y pose. Like, it was hard to find a balance between something that felt like how I've seen my dad actually move in tennis, and a very readable pose, and something I thought I could draw, and something that felt like it would work well with other characters in a composition, right? Because a lot of great tennis poses are fun, but once you start throwing other characters in there, it can kind of throw off the rhythm of it a bit, I feel like, so it was a bit of effort to try to come up with something that felt good, so you'll see me quite a bit in this speed paint. There's like quite a bit of time at the beginning where I'm doing some poses for him, and eventually I settle on something basic like he's just running, trying to catch up with the ball that he's gonna go do a swing at. I thought that would be fun. His racket is based on one of his real rackets, which has like this pink grip and bright green string. And bright green is definitely my dad's favorite color. My friend Gabriel used to call it like pistachio green. I always think of it as being kind of like tennis ball green, even though I'm pretty sure tennis balls are technically considered yellow, but come on, to me, to my eyes, I've always thought they were green. He actually used to have a car that was this bright green color, but unfortunately it got totaled last year, so no longer having that beautiful pistachio car. But still, it's a very iconic color for him. I feel like my dad always has an iconic color. He used to have like a yellow Volkswagen Beetle with blue flames on it back in the day, and yellow used to be like his big color, and now he's kind of like in a green phase, so who's to say what color might come after? I know that he likes to pair dark blue with it, but it's definitely a very green look. And because of that bright green color, that influenced me to have him have a shiny Teddy Ursa, since shiny Teddy Ursa and Ursaring are literally that color. And my dad's like a huge fan of bears. I've mentioned it before, but we have a lot of stuffed animals in my household, and my parents aren't really an exception, especially my dad. My dad has a large collection of teddy bears that are they're just the best. They're very sweet. A lot of them come from the Basic Brown Bear company that used to be in San Francisco that unfortunately has since closed, which, damn you, Build-A-Bear for being dicks about that. But anyway, we have a good amount of basic brown bears in our house. We're a real bear household, and Dad really loves the bears. So I wanted to give him a lot of bear Pokemon, and when I had him do, like, there's this, if you haven't done it already, there's a favorite Pokemon chart on GitHub, where you basically pick your favorite Pokemon of every type and every generation, and make a huge chart about it. It's a lot of fun, so if you haven't done it before, I highly recommend giving it a shot. I went through it with Dad, who only really knows some Pokemon. Like, everything he knows about it was from when he used to watch the anime with me when I was a kid, so basically generations 1, 2, and 3, and that's basically it. But you know, they've introduced some new bear Pokemon since then, such as Beartic and Pangoro, so those made it quickly on his favorites list, but one of his favorites is definitely like Teddy Ursa and Ursaring, and it seems like he preferred Teddy Ursa since that's the one he picked for his chart. Another one of his favorites from back in the day is Gengar. I remember I used to ask him what his favorite Pokemon was when I was like a kid, and Gengar used to be the answer back in the day. Nowadays, he's got a different response, and I'll get into that. Yeah, just 3 bears. We got Beartic and Pangoro and Teddiursa, and then we have Gengar, who's one that I associate with my childhood with Dad. And then one of the biggest Pokemon in this lineup, actually, literally, just the largest one, is Salamence. When I was a kid, me and my dad used to play the Pokemon TCG a lot, just casually at home. And I had a deck that had a lot of, like, psychic Pokemon in it, because I just really liked them. I had this Mewtwo EX card whose art I just thought looked really cool, so I really wanted to use it. It's actually basically just a reprint of the original Mewtwo card, if I remember right, now that I know the history of it a little bit more, so it's kind of funny that that became part of my deck. But Dad's deck was a Delta Species Salamence deck. And Delta Species were this thing back in like Gen 3 era Pokemon TCG where there would be Pokemon and the types would be different from usual, and that was honestly such an interesting thing. It was basically like a proto version of regional variants, honestly. Like, one of the Delta species for Meowth is literally dark and steel type, although a lot of the Delta species do share the steel typing because of like the lore of the region that it takes place in and like the TCG lore, which is weird. But it's just really funny that since then, like, in the mainline Pokemon games, Meowth has gotten, like, a regional variant that's a dark type in Alola, and then a regional variant that's a steel type in Galar, so it's just fun. I have, like, this theory that every time they introduce something new in the mainline Pokemon games, it's usually something recycled from the side media, whether that be the anime, the TCG, the spin-offs, like, it's really funny seeing all that come together. Like, the giant Pokemon in Galar, the Gigantamax and Dynamax, like, you see that in the anime, you see that in Pokemon Go first. You got the regional variants with, like, the Delta species and the Hoenn region. And anyway, my dad had this Fire Steel Salamence deck, and the art for it is very iconic to me. I always associate it with his deck. We recently, like, rebuilt it because I started digging up my cards again from the basement. And he said, like, his main thing that he likes to do is to have a deck that has a lot of Pokemon that inflict burn. So, yeah, to me, I feel like Dad's Salamence is a fire type. I didn't really color it any differently in this particular illustration, but to me, that Salamence is, like, an iconic Pokemon of his, and feels like a good parallel from, in my deck, I had a Delta species Flygon, who is a psychic type, so I don't know, I guess because they're featured prominently in the Jirachi movie as, like, parallels or rivals, like, Salamence and Flygon always felt like they were, like, I don't know, like, rival counterpart Pokemon to me, even though Flygon's not, like, a pseudo-legendary, and if anything, Salamance's counterpart is actually Metagross. But still, I still associate those two Pokemon together, and I definitely associate Salamence with Dad. And then, of course, you might be seeing a familiar sight if you remember the drawing I did with my mom and her Pokemon team. Jigglypuff is there again, although I made this one shiny because of the green eyes. When my dad did that chart that I was talking about, he had a very interesting favorite Pokemon after going through all of them. At the very bottom corner of his chart, his favorite, apparently it was just Jigglypuff, which was a real surprise to me. I really thought Teddiursa was gonna take the cake there, but nope, Dad's a Jigglypuff head these days. So even though he does like all these guys, apparently Jigglypuff's at the top of his list last time I asked, so I just think that's really fun and interesting. It's very funny that both my parents are Jigglypuff people. So I figured I would just give him the Jigglypuff he wanted. He said he specified it has to be the one from the anime with the microphone marker thing. So I gave it a little, like, microphone marker guy, but I made it, like, that green color that he uses for everything. And, of course, I made it shiny so its green eyes would kind of match the sort of lime green, bright, highlighter green type aesthetic that's happening with his entire color palette with Dad. And yeah, that was just very funny. This is such an odd little Pokemon team. There's so many, like, big, intimidating Pokemon, right? You've got, like, Salamence, and Gengar, and Pangoro, and Beartic. But then you also got, like, 2 little guys that are secretly kind of bastard. Like, I'll never forget, like, there's this episode of the Pokemon anime where there's this Teddiursa who's, like, really cute, but basically gaslights everybody into thinking it's a sweet angel when it's actually constantly stealing food and, like, causing problems on purpose and then blaming other Pokemon for it. So, like, Teddiursa for me has, like, this mischievous air about it, like it's causing problems on purpose. And then, of course, if you've seen the Pokemon anime, you're probably familiar with how funny that Jigglypuff is and, like, that it draws on people and is also a mischief maker. So I think there's, like, a lot of fun and variety in the Pokemon chosen here. It was really hard to narrow this down. Dad has, like, a lot of Pokemon that he likes, and some of them are really surprising. When I showed him some of the new Pokemon, you know his favorite Gen 8 Pokemon is? I'll let you think about it. Think about it for a second. What do you think this man who has all these favorites here... Oh, it's Stonejourner. What a weird pick, right? Like, I would not have expected that. He really likes Stonejourner, and I thought about having it on the team here, but I thought it was just too important to include everyone else here, so it was really tough trying to decide, because I had really a lot of options for this team. It took a lot of willpower for me to be able to actually narrow it down. I think that's a huge part of why I kept putting this drawing off, is just because, you know, I didn't know which Pokemon to pick for it. There were just so many options. Like, I feel like at least with my mom, there's like some really obvious ones that jump out, and thankfully there's enough obvious ones that I can fill a team with them. But there's so many ones that Dad likes and ones that I associate with him that it's kind of hard to narrow them down to just a team of 6. So, I don't know, maybe I'll draw him with more Pokemon in the future one day, maybe I'll draw him with Stonejourner one day. Dad, feel free to comment or just talk to me in real life if you want that. Like, feel free. But yeah, I just had a lot of fun with it. The coloring on this one was very interesting. Like always, when I draw a large multi-character setup, I try to reuse the same colors as much as possible. So the Teddiursa green is the same as the tank top green, which is the same as like the tennis racket string green. And I actually waited to do the tennis racket strings until pretty much just until the end. They're actually a vector layer on top of the line art in like the main folder in this illustration. So if you haven't already seen, like Clip Studio has this feature where if you use vector layers, you can erase lines up to a point where they intersect. And I use this pretty liberally in my line art. Like, I straight up wouldn't be doing as much line art as I do if it were not for that feature in Clip Studio Paint. There was a moment in like, I don't know, like 2021 where I could have gone like full lineless painterly art style, but thanks to Clip Studio's vector lines, I'm able to actually draw the line art I want to do as clean as I want to do it. So I just basically used that same feature to do the tennis racket strings, where I basically just drew a nice little grid with them, and then erased up to that point where they intersect, and the way that they overlap with the actual outlines of the tennis racket, the regular black line art, I feel like it actually does look like the way tennis strings actually look on a racket. So while they're not exactly even, they're not supposed to be precise, they're just fairly stylized. They kind of remind me of like a lot of the objects and stuff that you see in a lot of Leica films, like they deliberately make things not right angles or not completely straight in them. So I basically just took like a fun cartoony approach to those strings where it still reads clearly as a tennis racket, but it's not like, you know, the cleanest thing in the world, and I feel like it makes it look more in line with the rest of the drawing as well. It was very weird trying to figure out the composition for this, and figuring out the pose and how to convey Salamentz's pose correctly was very strange. Like, I had a very clear idea in my mind of how it was going to be flying behind them, but making it able to be read while all the other Pokemon are standing in front of him was a little bit tricky. And I ended up having to do like a couple of things where you can just barely see the legs and the belly, and you kind of have to infer what's going on, because if I put too much there, it would have gotten too busy and too muddy and kind of hard to parse or read, so I did a lot of like simplifying with that. I honestly did a lot. These are very simple Pokemon designs for the most part, and Salamence really is the most complicated of all of them. So I did a little bit of simplification of Salamentz's design just to help deal with the fact that, I mean, all these other guys are incredibly simple, and if Salamence was too complicated, it might just be a little bit too noisy. And doing the lines and doing the shading was also pretty interesting, since I wasn't really sure what color to go with. Like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go with, like, a warm or a cool shadow, since I wasn't sure if I wanted to lean into, like, the green tones, or if I wanted to lean into, like, the warm tones, so it was weird, and I ended up doing something kind of interesting, where most of the shadows are, like, this muted purple sort of color, and then depending on what they're shadowing, or what they're shading, I like to color the edges of my shadows the warmer color, usually that being, like, pink or something. But on some of the cooler colors, I ended up using, like, a teal as the outline, and then on every other color, I did, like, a pink, like I usually do, as the outline. And I think it gave, like, the look I was going for, which is, like, a nice, saturated, colorful, cartoony look. And, yeah, that was just a lot of fun. It was just such a fun time, like, trying to put this one together. It was definitely more of a puzzle than the one I did with Mom. Like, Mom had a lot of smaller Pokemon, so it was a lot easier to get them to stand next to each other. and feel like they're all believably in the same space, whereas a lot of these guys are fairly similar in scale. So I had to kind of like figure out how I wanted to scale everybody so that way it was still readable, but you can see every Pokemon clearly. And that was really quite a puzzle. I feel like anytime you do like a large multi-character illustration, it is a puzzle of like trying to figure out where to put everyone, where you can still see them, they are still readable, and the illustration as a whole still feels balanced and like good to look at. So yeah, that was tricky, but I managed it. Oh shoot, how did I go this whole time without mentioning the sunglasses? So, my dad likes to wear sunglasses. He has a lot of pairs of sunglasses. I swear to God, almost all of them have just gotten lost randomly in the years, but he loves reflective sunglasses, and I do too. I think I got that from him. But he has like this pair of sunglasses that are like, have these bright green frames with like this reflective blue lens. And there was a point in time, you might remember it, you know, 2012. You remember Gangnam Style? You remember how viral that was? Well, yeah, the people in my town, my hometown, it's a very white place. There's a lot of white people here. We are one of few, like, people of color in this town. So when Dad pulled up in his cool-looking car and stepped out, this Asian man, and he was wearing these freaking sunglasses that were very reflective, a lot of the kids thought he looked like Psy, and he's not even Korean. It's so funny. But yeah, that was something of like I don't know, I guess a celebrity among children in town because of just, he's such a distinctive looking character. Like, if you saw my dad, just like walking around in a place, you would be like, whoa, that guy's kind of crazy. Because he's got like that distinctive color palette, he's got those sunglasses, he carries himself very confidently, I would say too, so yeah, my dad really is like, he's really just a cartoon character, so in a lot of ways, it was kind of easy to convert him into a Pokemon trainer, because I feel like he already basically dresses and acts like one. All he needs is, like, some, like, creatures or something to be hanging out with in addition to that, and there you go. That would be the whole thing. So, yeah, there we go. There's Dad's iconic, like, tennis look. There's all his Pokemon that I've chosen for him, and this was a bit of a challenging illustration. I feel like I could have done better with it, but I still had a lot of fun with it. And I think it came out really good, so here's hoping when Dad sees this, he'll like it too. And with that, that's all I've got for you guys today. Dad, I hope you're watching this. I hope you liked this drawing. I hope the rest of you liked seeing my process as well. I thought this was a very interesting thing to go through. I had a couple of hiccups recording it, so hopefully the way I've edited it, you don't even notice that I had any issues. I still had a lot of fun drawing it. I think it came out really cool and very fun. It was very fun to do. If you would like to support me, I recommend checking out my Ko-fi page. There you can follow me for different blog updates to see what I'm up to. You can also support me by commissioning me, checking out my shop, or supporting me monthly. Any support and any help is appreciated. I even just appreciate having followers on there, because it's cool to know that people are interested in knowing what I'm up to, and any monthly support I can get is really a dream come true. It's really cool to be able to, you know, make money off of the art that I like to do. So if you like what I do here, then any support would be highly appreciated and help me keep doing what I do. I'm also getting pretty close to 200 subscribers. I'm recording this like maybe a month in advance from when you'll be watching it. I'm at 176 subscribers at the time of recording, so I'm hoping to get to 200 before the summertime comes, and I think that we're actually getting much closer and much faster than I realized, so I think we'll probably hit that pretty soon, and who knows, maybe I'll already have hit it by the time you're watching this. And I believe that is everything I've got for you guys today. So, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all again next week with another art video. And in the meantime, why don't you guys go out there and make some art.